So
okay.
we are lucky that we take all the questions.
We take all the questions? No, I think we take it one by one. I prefer it that way. Yeah, it is true that there is no hadith that specifies that Tawheed is of three. But there is also no hadith that specifies that the obligatory acts of wudu are 7. Or the obligatory acts of prayer are 15. But this is the position of the scholars. And how did they know that? Is by looking at all the commands that have come regarding Tawheed, and by looking at the commands in the Quran and Sunnah regarding how to perform ablution. That is how you are able to realize that. This is what they call al-istiqra. Because when you do istiqra, when you follow the texts of the Quran and the Sunnah that speak about Tawheed, you find that it is within these three. It is either declaring the unity of Allah in what Allah alone does. That is, Allah is the one who gives life. Allah is the one who takes life. Allah is the one who enriches. Allah is the one who improvises. Allah is the one who brings poverty. Allah is the one who knows the unseen. Now, if anybody ascribes that activity, that action of Allah to other than Allah, has he not done shirk? If you say somebody knows the unseen, or somebody has power to give you richness, or somebody has power to give you a child, is that not shirk? I'm asking you. If it is shirk, then declaring that only Allah will do that, then that is Tawheed, which is what they call Tawheed al-Rububiyyah. That is Tawheed in the acts of Allah. And it is there in the Quran. قُلْ مَنْ رَبُّ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ قُلْ مَنْ يَرْزُقُكُم مِّنَ السَّمَاءِ وَالْأَرْضِ أَمَّنْ يَمْلِكُ السَّمْعَ وَالْأَبْصَارَ أَمَّنْ يُخْرِجُ الْحَيَّ مِنَ الْمَيِّتِ وَيُخْرِجُ الْمَيِّتَ مِنَ الْحَيِّ وَمَنْ يُدَبِّرُ الْأَمْرَ فَسَيَقُولُونَ اللَّهُ فَقُلْ أَفَلَا تَتَّقُونَ قُلْ لِمَنِ الْأَرْضُ وَمَنْ فِيهَا إِن كُنتُمْ تَعْلَمُونَ سَيَقُولُونَ لِلَّهِ قُلْ أَفَلَا تَذَكَّرُونَ قُلْ مَنْ رَبُّ السَّمَاوَاتِ السَّبْعِ وَرَبُّ الْعَرْشِ الْعَظِيمِ سيقولون لله قل أفلا تتقون قل من بيده ملكوت كل شيء وهو يجير ولا يجار عليه إن كنتم تعلمون سيقولون لله قل فأنا تسحرون بل أتيناهم بالحق وإنهم لكاذبون ما اتخذ الله من ولد وما كان معه من إله إذا لذهب كل إله بما خلق ولعلى بعضهم على بعض سبحان الله أما يصفون. This is Tawheed, and it's all Tawheed al-Rububiyyah. And the other form is Tawheed in what we do to Allah. This is Tawheed in what Allah does. Then there is Tawheed in what we do to Allah. What we do to Allah, we do to Him alone. قُلْ إِنَّ صَلَاتِي وَنُسُكِي وَمَحْيَايَ وَمَمَاتِي لِلَّهِ رَبِّ الْعَالَمِينَ لَا شَرِيكَ لَهُ. This is Tawheed al-Uluhiyyah. Then we have the Tawheed of His names and His attributes. هَلْ تَعْلَمُ لَهُ سَمِيًّا. Do you know anyone with names like the names of Allah? That is Tawheed. And He says, لا تدركه الأبصار وهو يدرك الأبصار وهو اللطيف الخبير. This is Tawheed of His eyesight cannot fathom Him, and He is the one who fathoms eyesight. And He says, ليس كمثله شيء وهو السميع البصير. There is none like unto Him. Nothing resembles Allah. This is Tawheed, isn't it? Nothing resembles Allah in His names. Nothing resembles Him in His essence. Nothing resembles Him in His names. This is Tawheed. Is there a fourth type? Is there any other Tawheed besides this? Some they say there is Tawheed al-Hakimiyyah. That is the Tawheed of legislation. He is the only one who legislates. But that is part of Tawheed al-Ibadah. Because following Allah in His legislation alone, you are saying that you are only going to accept the authority of Allah. ألا لله الخلق ألا له الخلق والأمر Inil hukmu illa lillah. The judgment belongs to Allah, the authority belongs to Allah alone. This is all part of Tawheed al-Ibadah. So if there is another category, come with it. But you see, reciting the Quran and going through the nusus of the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the ulama, our scholars, they have found that Tawheed could be categorized into these three, and nothing says that if you don't categorize Tawheed into three, you are doing bid'ah. Nothing says that. But if you don't follow these three Tawheeds, you are definitely not a believer. Because if you do shirk in Tawheed al-Rububiyyah, even if you don't believe in, how can you not believe in Tawheed al-Rububiyyah? But if you say that you will learn Tawheed not through that pattern of Tawheed al-Rububiyyah, of the Usul al-Thalatha, for instance, if you say you will not learn Tawheed in that way, you are free not to learn Tawheed in that way. For instance, the traditional way that when we are young they used to teach Tawheed is La inama an Allah, La khaliqa illa Allah, La raziqa illa Allah, La kadha illa Allah. That is Tawheed al-Rububiyyah, but you don't call it Tawheed al-Rububiyyah. You call it Qawaidi. You call it Qawaidi. So it's just a matter of terminology. So I don't know if I have answered his question, but definitely you see, and also another example that I gave is the question of the obligatory acts of wudu. We said that wudu has obligatory acts. Where in the Quran and Sunnah did it say that there are 7? The obligatory acts of wudu are 7, which is washing the face, washing the arms up to the elbow, wiping over the head, washing the feet up to the ankle, and then doing the wudu at the same time, and then following one act after the other, and then doing a dalk, that is rubbing. Some ulama, they don't regard a dalk, they say it's only 6. So it's a matter of issue of classification, and mostly when you do the classification, if you follow the nusus by doing what is called istiqra, that is following each and every nas, and it reaches to the same conclusion, then you can strongly say that the only tawheed that I found in the Quran is one of these three, and you will be correct.
Let me use the opportunity of the moderator.
Okay, Jamil.
So my question is this: we have this kind of transaction. I know that's also very good area. So we have a kind of transaction where somebody will buy, let's say, tricycle. So give it to the rider, they'll be riding it. So every day they ask them to be paying maybe 5,000 based on the prevailing situation in the environment. So they ask them to be paying it over some period of time. So that is the transaction. Is that permissible or not?
And then what happens to the tricycle at the end of the period?
There's no discussion around that.
He will bring back the tricycle to you?
Yes. The person will just like you give him, like you rent it to him, so use it every day.
Okay, there is no question of ownership.
No question of
transfer of ownership. Yes, this is a contract of lease. It's a contract of lease. You are leasing your tricycle to the person to make use of it, make use of it and then pay you 5,000. So if he goes and works with it, he earned 10,000. No matter how much he earns, he will bring you 5,000. If he went home and slept and didn't go out to work, he has to cough off 5,000 to give you. Wherever he will get it, he has to give, because he has made use of the user fract. You sold the usage of the tricycle for him for that day for 5,000 naira. So this is a lease contract, and a lease is an act, is a type of sale contract which Allah has permitted. وَأَحَلَّ اللَّهُ الْبَيْعَ And also the Prophet sallallahu in the Quran, when Musa alayhi salam was getting married, he said, you are going to work for me Thamaniya Hijaj, for 8 years. So that is a contract of lease. It is permissible in the Sharia. But then in such a contract, minor repairs are the responsibility of who? Who is responsible for the minor? The user. The user is responsible for minor repairs. What are minor repairs? There is a puncture, brake fluid, the brake is not working. But major repairs like overhaul of the engine, the replacement of the gearbox is on the owner, because he still owns it. That's why at the end of the lease period, it will be brought back to him. There is no transfer of ownership. So this is the question we're asking. If there is transfer of ownership, then that is something else. There is a way that then it will follow. It could follow the same pattern, but then there has to be an undertaking to sell or an undertaking to purchase. Now,
so we may like it to proceed, sir, for that.
Okay, if there is transfer of ownership, if you want to make provision for transfer of ownership, you have somebody, he wants to own a tricycle, or you want to, the tricycle, for instance, it costs you 2 million, and you want to earn 2.5 million from it. So you say every day you will be bringing 5,000 for me. Now 5,000, you divide 2.5 million into 5,000. How much are you going to get? You are going to get how much? 2.5 million divided by 5,000. So 2,500 divided by 500 days. So you have 500 days. 500 days, every day he's bringing 5,000. That will give you 2.5 million, isn't it? So you say in 500 days of non-stop payment of 5,000, you would have recouped your initial investment and your profit, because you bought it for 2 million and you are selling. You have targeted 2.5 million, and he has paid you 2.5 million. So you'll make the contract that if you fulfill the lease for 500 days, unfailingly paying me 5,000 naira every day, at the end of the period, I am going to, I promise, I undertake to give you the tricycle as a gift. So that becomes al-hibatul mashruta. So you are joining together a contract of lease and a contract of conditional gift, al-hiba al-mashruta. That is permissible in the Sharia. Or you say, when you I lease it to you for 500 days at 5,000 naira every day, and I undertake to sell it to you at the end of the 500 days for a very low price. So when he has done the 500 days, you will say, now let's sign a sale contract. I have sold the tricycle to you for 1,000 naira, for instance, and he will take it, because you have given a condition, and it is obligatory for you to fulfill your undertaking. And he cannot say I will not buy, and you cannot say I will not sell. Or you make it in such a way that the last installment, the installment of the 500th day, is going to be equivalent to the selling price. So you say, when you give me for 500 days, the last installment of the 500 days will automatically translate into a sale contract. So here you are joining a lease contract that is separated and a sale contract that is also separated. And this is why it is different from hire purchase. It's not hire purchase, it is a sale, it is a lease followed by a sale contract, which is permissible in the Sharia. Now,
Alaikum salam. They are just borrowing the water. I don't think it technically means higher purchase. It's because the last portion you mentioned, sir. People are interested to know this, as you mentioned, and they don't mean as higher purchase under English law total. They mean the last one you mentioned, sir. It's just like an agreement of selling to be paid instrumentally, as you mentioned. The last one served as the last payment, as he was telling you.
You see, the last one, the one that I said is higher and eventual sale.
Yes.
Higher and eventual sale. What happens to the tricycle throughout the 500 days is the responsibility of the owner. The user is not under any obligation to replace the tricycle when something bad happens to it.
What they do is the user used to repair.
The user will repair for minor repairs, but for major repairs he can't. The one that you are talking about is another form. There is a third form, which is an installment, an outright sale with installmental payment.
Yes. That is one they are.
Yes. They will exactly. They will sell. The owner will sell the tricycle to you for $2.5 million, and he will ask you to be paying installmentally. In such a case, the tricycle belongs to the user. He has already bought it, so he will be responsible for all repairs. He will also be responsible for impairment. If he were to take an insurance, he will be the one to take the insurance, so that if it is destroyed by fire, he will be the beneficiary from the insurance. And here the insurance has to be an Islamic insurance for an Islamic contract, takaful. It will be replaced, because all that has happened is that the owner has already locked his position. He cannot, if instead of 500 days, some days he was not able to work and he defaulted, the owner cannot increase the amount for him. He can't increase. He has to pay $2.5 million for 500 days, even if he took 550 days to pay. He has to pay exactly $2.5 million. He can't increase. But in a lease that ends in ownership, he can change the lease. He will say, since you have defaulted, 1 week you have not brought anything. For the following week, you are going to be paying me 6,000, not 5,000, because of your default. So that in the end, if he took 550 days to pay, instead of paying $2.5 million, he will end up maybe paying $2,700,000. That is permissible in a lease. That's why some financial institutions, especially like banks, when they are doing asset purchase, they prefer the lease to own. They prefer the first option, not the option of outright sale. Because in outright sale, you lock your position. You cannot increase the price on account of default from the payment of the purchase price. Do you understand this? Do you understand the difference between the two? Okay.
There are still other questions around this. Maybe we'll seek for opportunities to engage with Mr. But we have a cooperative that will manage.
Okay.
So there are some questions that inshallah will seek for opportunities to ask. So let's go back to the numbering. Sorry, we'll not be able to.
It depends on
that. We'll come back to it. But no, go ahead.
Alaikum salam.
I wanted to render my question yesterday at because of time I couldn't So my question is about the man you made mention of yesterday, Abu Musa al-Ash'ari. I want to know, is he Sahaba, Nabi, or an Islamic scholar?
Yeah, Abu Musa al-Ash'ari was a companion of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He was among the Sahaba. He came to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam in the 7th year after Hijrah. He and members of his clan, they were originally from Yemen, Al-Ash'ariyun. They came in a group and they lived in Medina for 4 years. before the death of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And he was, within that period, he memorized the Quran. He was among the Sahaba who had memorized the Quran during the lifetime of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And he had a very beautiful voice. He had a very beautiful voice. Even the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to listen to his recitation, and he used to say, "You've been given a beautiful melody of your voice, like the one Allah gave to the Prophet Dawood alayhi salam." So he was a Sahabi. He was posted to Basra by Umar radiallahu anhu. He was posted there as a governor, as a judge, as a teacher, and an imam, all joined together in him. 4 in 1. Yes.
So before we go to the next question, so we have questions from the sisters. So I'll be taking one from brothers, one from sisters. So this question says, sister, which one is preferred on a platform comprising of non-Muslim and Muslim? And they ask for donation. So
in a platform?
In a platform,
okay.
We have Muslims and non-Muslims, and they ask for donation. So is it better to donate secretly or publicly to encourage other Muslims to contribute to that population, or to do it secretly? So which one is better?
Yeah. First, the platform that seeks donation from Muslims and Christians, for what purpose? If the purpose is Sharia compliant, it is permissible for you. But for instance, when they are raising donation for something that will involve haram, it will involve maybe organizing a party, a send-off party, or a burial whereby there is going to be consumption of alcohol and things that are not Sharia compliant, then it's not permissible for you to engage in that. But if it is like for a send-off, instead of contributing, you can buy a gift and give to the person. You say, this is my contribution, I will contribute in kind, not in cash. And you buy a gift like a computer, a handset, and say, this is my own contribution to this our colleague who is passing out, instead of contributing money that will be used in buying and consuming alcohol. But then whether you should do it in public or you do it in secret, if you do it in public as Allah has said, then that is beautiful, because it will encourage others to give. But when there is no that element is not there of encouraging others to do, then it is always better that your charity, your donation is done secretly. But whenever it is done with the intention, with the purpose of gathering as much as possible, because people will be encouraged to give, it is better to give publicly than to give in secret.
Sorry, okay. I think the last part, I missed the last part. So, in a place like this, people say Muslims are not contributing to what's happening around them. So I think the concern of the person is that should I do it publicly so that they will know that Muslims are also contributing.
Yeah, this is why I said, whenever there is a purpose, a genuine purpose of doing it publicly, it's better to do it publicly. Like this one now, because it will give a good impression of who the Muslims are, then it is better to do it publicly. Whenever there is a purpose, a genuine purpose of doing it publicly, it's better to do it publicly, because it's what Allah has said in the Quran. If you make your donation public, then how beautiful that is. So Allah has sanctioned it. So whenever there is a genuine purpose of doing it publicly, then it's better to go ahead and do it publicly than to hide it. Yeah, I think I understand the question. You see, what happened with Najashi, has got several implications and several lessons for us. And Ibn Taymiyyah, rahmatullahi alayhi, used to refer to it a lot. It shows the mercy of Allah and the consideration that is given to situations whereby the act of the individual is limited by his ability or by what he can possibly do and what he cannot do. Because An-Najashi, it may not even be that he didn't know there was prayer, but he was not in a position to observe it. He was not in a position to observe it. He was not in a position to travel to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because that will mean abandoning his kingdom. And that was something which the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam did not permit for him to do. He did not ask him to come to him. You know, before the victory over Mecca, it was obligatory for people, when they accept Islam, to come to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam didn't demand from Najashi to come to him, as he demanded for other Arab tribes to do the same, because he was not in a situation to do that. And if he did that, it will mean his life will be taken, because they won't allow him, they will kill him. As a leader of the church, as a leader of the kingdom, for him to accept Islam and make it open and come under the authority of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he will be killed. So the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam did not allow that to happen. So there is a level of tolerance in order to achieve a higher benefit, because it will achieve a higher benefit for him to remain in his kingdom as a Muslim than for him to die a martyr. So in present day, to reach to such a decision regarding people who come to be in a position similar to that of Najashi is something that requires a lot of it's something that requires ijtihad. You have to strain your effort to look at the situation and compare with what obtained during the time of Najashi, and to weigh, to do fiqh al-muwazana. And that is why our contemporary scholars, they came up with what they call fiqh al-aqalliyat, the jurisprudence of minorities. And they established a council in Europe and the Americas, because their situation is not the same as the situation of areas of countries where Islam has been established, and they are Muslim majority countries. They have things that are specific to them. So they look at the situation they are in, and they look at their peculiarities. Then they look at this kind of instances in the history of Islam, and they come up with judgment. So the story of Najashi is still relevant to us, but how we apply it will depend on knowing the actual situation, the way it is, and then seeing the lessons that we can learn from these instances, and also seeing the things that are uncompromisable in Islam and those that could change with time. There are things that cannot change with time, and there are things that will change with time and place and condition and situation. But there are others that cannot change. There are what they call at-thawabit wal-mutaghayyirat. There are things that are unchangeable, then there are things that are subject to change. Yes.
Yeah, so the reason why I have this question is that, the present day most Muslims, they like to keep up excuses on issues like this. That, yes, even as he was not able to pray, after all, was so that he observed for that reason for him in the absence. But one thing that must make us understand is that there are 5 things Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam was given that we are not given to other prophets except him. Out of these 5 things is that Allah has made most of this on the earth as messages for him and his followers. So there is no condition a Muslim will be, and you say as a result I couldn't get a mosque to pray, and because of that I did not pray. That is why I didn't pray. So for those of us who are present here now, I don't think any of us can fall in that kind of situation.
Yeah, you are quite right. You see, somebody asked me, he lives in Siberia, in the Soviet Union. in Russia, in the Russian Federation. You know Siberia, the extreme north, very cold, extremely cold place. Yes, and because of the nature of the time, because it is up north, therefore the times of prayer, like in winter, the days are extremely short. And if he is to go to work, if he goes to work, by the time he is going back, if he waits till he arrives at his destination, the sun will have set and he will miss Asr prayer. Sometimes even Dhuhr he will miss. So he was asking, how does he pray Dhuhr and Asr? Does he leave prayer till he goes back home? And I told him that, and this was my own ijtihad, because prayer cannot be compromised in terms of its time. You have to pray within the stipulated time, and you pray the way you can. And we've seen the Prophet ﷺ, he had accepted for people, for the Sahaba to pray even without ablution, without tayammum. So, but I said, since you know that you are going to be in the train for those long hours, make sure before you enter the train you have your ablution. Then when you are in the train and there is no way for you, for the train to stop, for you to go off the train and pray, and the time of prayer is going to go out, pray the way you are, whether you are sitting or you are standing. If you have a seat, pray and make your ruku lower than their sujood, your sujood lower than your ruku. And if you are not, you don't have a seat, you are standing, you pray the way you are. And at that time I told him what happened to me. I traveled from London to Birmingham on a bus from the airport, and because the bus did not stop along the road, by my calculation, by the time I will reach, it will still be time for Asr. I had not prayed Dhuhr, I had not prayed Asr. And by the time we were approaching the train station, the coach station, the sun, at that time it will set at 4:30. I was looking at the watch. Seeing when we will arrive. But because of the hold up within the city, it took so long. By the time it was 20 minutes past 4, I was sure that even if we reach at that time, I will not find a place to make wudu and pray. And there was no way I could do tayammum. So what I did was to rub the bottom of my shoe, because the bottom of the shoe, the sole, it had some sand. Yes. So I rubbed the bottom of my shoe and I did tayammum and I prayed Dhuhr and Asr sitting down there. Because you can't compromise the prayer time. You have to pray within the stipulated prayer time. If to say that I didn't even have access to what I will do tayammum, you pray like that, without wudu, without tayammum. This is why Imam al-Bukhari, he said, Babu man lam yajid tuhurain. The chapter on the one who has not been able to find how to perform ablution or how to perform a tayammum. So as you said, yeah, it is a very good sound of warning that prayer is very important, it's uncompromisable. And besides, you know, we can't equate our situation with the situation of An-Najashi. I mean, the situation of An-Najashi will come regarding some people maybe who are kings, and there are certain restrictions which they cannot do to make manifest their activities of Islam. Then that ones, if they seek the fatwa of people of knowledge, they could direct them on how to do. But there are things, this is why I said that there are things that we cannot compromise, tawabit, but there are things that are subject to change. Sorry, I take time in answering, this is my problem. Yeah, thank you. A very nice, very important question. Work for someone who is poor, who cannot have a landed property, he can do work by planting a tree. You can plant a tree and you continue watering it, and that is work. And you can do work through what they call crowdfunding. Crowdfunding. They did this type of work in Medina for a plot of land that was given to Jam'iyyat Tahfidh al-Quran, which is the society of memorization of the Quran. It is the one that is responsible for the Quran study cycles in different mosques that are teaching people. So they pay the teachers and so on. Now they wanted to build a 7-story building that will serve as a hotel, and the income from that will be used to support the Quranic cycles. So for them to raise the money, they got their engineers, their quantity surveyors, and they came out with the cost of building it, and they reduced it to 1 square meter. 1 square meter of building that hotel will cost an amount that a poor person can afford. So if you want, you will buy 100 square meters, 1,000 square meters, but the least you can buy is 1 square meter. So in such a case, people were able to raise the funds, and people who were poor, who could not afford to purchase several units, they could purchase 1 unit. So this is one way that people can, up till now, we are waiting for the Securities and Exchange Commission to come up with the regulations regarding crowdfunding, so that you can mobilize funds and people can come together and establish a joint waqf. So this is one way to do a joint waqf. Or you can, among yourselves, if you are poor, you can make contributions and then maybe build a classroom in a school, build even 1 classroom in a school, or you purchase prayer mats for a mosque. This is all waqf. So there are many ways that you can do waqf, without being extremely rich. Secondly, the use of tasbih. Now the use of tasbih, some scholars are so strict regarding it, they regard it as bid'ah, and some scholars, they say that this is not an act of ibadah itself. There is no specific reward for making use of tasbih. It is just an ala, it is just an instrument which you will use. So if its usage is based on that, it is permissible, especially from the hadith of Juwayriyah, that she was counting her tasbih with dates, and the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he only taught her what is better, but he didn't object to her counting the dates, even though the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam has given clear instruction to women. He said, وَعَقَدْنَا الْأَنَامِلِ, make use of your fingertips to count. So which shows that it is always better to make use of your fingertips, because he said, فَإِنَّهُنَّ مُسْتَنْطَقَاتْ مَسْئُولَاتْ, because your fingers, they will be asked to speak on the day of judgment, so they will testify for you. So that is why wherever you are able to do tasbih with your fingers, like after prayer, use your fingers. But if you want to do tasbih, you want to do tasbih, for instance, the dhikr of the morning that involves 100 times, even that one you can do it with your fingers. But if you feel that it will make you lose count, because you are the kind of the absent-minded people, you can make use of the tasbih. It is just an ala. But don't feel that, but it has to be with conditions that you are not doing it for show off, because some people, whenever they are in the presence of people, they are busy doing tasbih, so that everybody will know that, Kai, Ahlul Dhikri. Not to do that. You do it just for the sake of Allah, you hide it even, except when you don't have to hide it. And this is my opinion. But other people, they have a strong view regarding using tasbih. But even among the scholars, the contemporary scholars, there are those who regard it as just an ala, an instrument. Like Sheikh Al-Uthaymin, Sheikh Muhammad Salih Al-Uthaymin, he regards this as an ala. So if it is used as an ala, it's just like to do the adhan using the loudspeaker. There is no specific reward of using the loudspeaker for the muazzin, but there is the reward for the one who buys the loudspeaker. Cool. The one who buys the loudspeaker, there is reward for him because it is serving the purpose of reaching out to other people. But the muazzin, whether he does with the loudspeaker or without the loudspeaker, there is no specific reward for him for that, except of course we will say, Kai, Imam, I think there is reward for the muazzin too.
He's supposed to.
He should, because the Prophet ﷺ said, when the muazzin makes the call for prayer, everything that hears the prayer, whether a tree or a hill or a stone, he will testify for him on the day of judgment. So when he uses the loudspeaker, the people, more people and more objects will hear. So there is reward for that. Yes. So, and the last question?
Slaughtering for sadaqah.
Yeah, the slaughtering. You see, the act of slaughtering, if it is done for the sake of Allah, for sadaqah, it is permissible. But the thing is attaching it to a specific day. You say that every Friday I will do the slaughtering. That is what makes it an innovation. But if on you are seeking for Allah's pleasure, you want to be good to people and you slaughter, or you have a need with Allah and you use the slaughtering as wasila, as the means to achieve the answering of your prayer, it is permissible to do that. Why I mention it regarding those who say you should slaughter for you to get your yes, exactly. When you make it an analogy with udhiyah, when you say that instead of doing udhiyah once a day, I will do udhiyah every Friday. When you do that, then that is innovation. Or even worse still, when you slaughter based on what the magicians tell you to do, because they feel you should slaughter in the name of an idol or in the name of a demon, then that becomes shirk. Yes.